few weeks ago, I did this crazy thing called the Riverbank Run. And I know everybody that knows me is going to sit there and say, he's not really going to talk about running again, is he? Well, just a little bit, because I want to share with you a story about my running. Because what many of you don't know is that I wasn't always a runner. I wasn't. It was sometime in my mid-30s that I had a friend of mine who was training for the Riverbank Run, and he challenged me. And he said, hey, why don't you come run the Riverbank with me? And me being me, well, how hard can that be? Seriously. It's only 15 and a half miles. How can it be? Now, mind you, I've never run more than 2 miles in my entire life. But I'm like, yeah, bring it. Let's do this thing, right? And so I trained for the Riverbank Run, and it wasn't easy. It was not easy. I didn't like it at all, zero, and I struggled. I can remember being out on a run out in Ada, and I'm just dying. And I'm just like, and I'm only like 5 miles into this run, and I'm like, dear God, I've got to run 10 more miles, really? But I made it. And that was the beginning for me, because I knew when I finished it, that was the beginning for me to go like, I think I kind of like this running thing. And so what happened is over the course of the next few months, I continued my running, and I had this brilliant idea that, well, he challenged me to run the Riverbank, then I think I'm going to challenge him to run a marathon. And so Detroit Marathon's coming up. Let's go do the Detroit Marathon. And so we start running. Now, again, it's not easy. It's hard. Thank God I had a partner to do it with, and that we held each other accountable. But I found the most amazing thing happened to me, and that was the more I trained, the more I ran, the more I liked it. And it just started to become me. And again, I want to go back to this. At first, it wasn't easy. I didn't like it. I struggled to do it consistently. But the longer I did it over time, it started to get easier and easier. And I really started to see the benefits of it. I started getting in shape. I started losing a little bit of weight. I started feeling more energy. It was really, really good. And I started to get excited about it. And eventually, this struggle that I'm sure many of you can relate to when you start doing something that you haven't done before, this debate that goes on inside of your head, I don't want to do it, I want to do it, I don't want to do it, I do it, I don't want anybody to know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, that happens. But what I noticed is that kind of started to go away. And in other words, what happened is running started to become a part of who and what I am. It started to become a part of me. And I went from not really being a runner to becoming a runner. And at this point now, I've run the Riverbank over 20 times and run almost 50 marathons. And I think it's officially safe to say I'm a runner. Just saying. That's what I do. I'm not telling you that to go, oh, look at Mike, look at Mike. That's not why I'm telling you that. I'm telling it because there's a bigger part of the story. So, a couple years ago, somebody told me about this book, Younger Next Year. Anybody ever read it? Anybody know about it? Here's what it says. Basically, what the book Younger Next Year talks about is this idea that as we get older, most people, as they age, it kind of looks like this slow progression down. And there was a doctor that had the audacity to come out and say, you don't have to do it that way, folks. You really don't have to do it that way. In other words, what you could do is you could start doing some exercises using weights where it goes more like this. Boom. And I thought to myself, because I've seen everybody else go like this, that does not look appealing to me. Nothing about that looks like fun. I've seen my parents gone through it. I've seen dear friends of mine go through it. It just doesn't look like a lot of fun to me. And I'm going like, hey, man, I like that one. If I got to choose one, that's the one I'm choosing. But it requires you to do this one thing called lifting weights. Oh, God, I've hated lifting weights my entire life. I've never lifted weights, ever. Okay, so I go get a gym membership. I start going into the gym. And all of a sudden, at first, wasn't easy. I didn't like it. I struggled to do it consistently. But the longer I did it, over time, it started to get easier. And it started to get easier. And I started to see the benefit of lifting weights. And I started to get excited about it. And then, just like running, what happened was the thought of either doing it or not doing it disappeared. In other words, I didn't think about whether I was going to do it or not. I was just going to do it. It disappeared. And so, once again, same exact case scenario was it started to become a part of who and what I am. And now I can call myself somebody who actually lifts weights on a regular basis. That's kind of what I do. Are you kind of catching some similarities in here? Good. See some heads going, yeah, Mike, get to the point. So, 30 years ago, roughly, a little bit more, I moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and at the time, I was struggling. Now, many of you know I was exposed to truth principles and spiritual tools when I was 16. That's all true. But just like everybody else, there was times when I would do it and times when I wouldn't. There was times when I would do the practice and times when I wouldn't. So in other words, like I wasn't all in. Anybody ever been there? Anybody there now? But I wasn't. And if I was going to be honest with myself, I wasn't doing it on a regular and consistent basis. And therefore, I wasn't getting the full benefit of doing it. I wasn't. Why? Because I wasn't doing it consistently. I wasn't living a spiritual life consistently and doing all the things that somebody who's living a spiritual life does. So I wasn't doing it on a regular basis, right? And I just wasn't committed to it. I was just playing around with the edges, kind of poking my toe in and pulling my toe out, putting my toe in, pulling it out. And I just said, hey, something has got to change here. So I made a decision. And I said, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Now, at the time, I'm married. I got 2 kids running around like what somebody married with 2 kids looks like. A lot of us have been there. And I said, well, this is easy. What if I start getting up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning and taking a couple hours in the morning and do what I need to do to take care of myself? And so I made that decision. And so I started getting up and I started getting serious about my spiritual life. Because what I realized was that if I didn't take the time to pay attention to it, to give it the attention and the need that it needed, that it was just kind of And I could only go so far, and I would get really inconsistent results with it. I had this feeling that something more was there, but I couldn't feel it. I couldn't experience it, and I just knew that there was something more. I knew it. And I said, well, maybe if I start doing this at 5 o'clock in the morning, then maybe things will start to change. And so I started it, and this was over 25 years ago. And I'm still doing it to this day. Because over time, guess what? At first, it wasn't easy. I didn't like it. I struggled to do it consistently. But the longer I did it over time, it started to get easier and easier. And over time, I started to see the benefits of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing my prayers and doing my meditations and doing my affirmations and doing all the things that I need to do from a spiritual standpoint so that I can be the highest version of myself. Better and more importantly, so that I can keep myself in a really, really, really high vibration. To me, everything is about my energy. Everything. From the conversations I have, to the food I eat, to the books I read, to the people I hang out with, it's all about my energy and wanting to maintain a really high level of energy, right? And so eventually what happened was, because I kept doing it and getting up early, I eventually I became somebody who was really honestly engaged and living a spiritual life to the best of my ability. I'm not saying, I'm not one of those people. I know some people that get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they meditate for 3 hours and all that stuff. That's not me. But for some people it is, and that's beautiful. If that's what the path is, then beautiful. I salute that, right? But I no longer was playing around the edges. I was no longer just kind of playing with it. I got serious about it. And with that seriousness, by the way, there comes a lightness, there comes fun, there can be joy in it. It doesn't always have to be rigid, like I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, right? But in all three of the examples I just gave you, I did something long enough until it changed who I was, right? In other words, I hit what I'm referring to, what I'm calling a tipping point. And what I mean by that is I went from not being a runner to being a runner. I went from not being someone who lifted weights to somebody who lifted weights. And I went from somebody who wasn't really living a spiritual life consistently and on a regular basis to somebody that is. And in all three of these examples I'm sharing with you, I had done these things long enough until I hit what I'm calling a tipping point. So, a tipping point is when you literally change your identity. You literally change who and what you are. I want to share with you another book that I think is just fabulous. Atomic Habits. Anybody read Atomic Habits? It's an incredible book. It's really, really, really yummy, especially if you're wanting to change something, right? And in the book Atomic Habits, it talks about the 3 different layers of behavioral change. And it says the first layer of change, you focus on your outcomes. So it says the level is concerned with changing your results, losing weight, publishing a book, winning a championship. Most of the goals you set are associated with this level of change. But then there's a second level. And this layer of change where you change your process. And it talks about this level is concerned with changing your habits and systems, implementing a new routine at the gym, decluttering your desk for a better workflow, developing a meditation practice. Most of your habits you build are associated with this level. Sounds good, right? But there's one more level. And he talks about the third and deepest layer is changing your identity. This is where you change who and what you are. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. This level is concerned with changing your beliefs, your worldview, your self-image, your judgments about yourself and others. Most of the beliefs, assumptions, or biases you hold are associated with this level. What I'm talking about is changing things at that level. In each one of those instances, I changed my identity, who and what I was. And when I talk about, he goes on to say, the ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes a part of your identity. It's one thing to say, I'm the type of person who wants this. It's something very different to say, I'm the type of person who is this. The more pride you have in a particular aspect of your identity, the more motivated you'll be to maintain the habits associated with it. If you're proud of how your hair looks, you'll develop all sorts of habits to care for and maintain it. If you're proud of the size of your biceps, you'll make sure you never skip an upper body workout. If you're proud of the scarves you knit, you'll be more likely to spend hours knitting each week. Once your pride gets involved, you'll fight tooth and nail to maintain your habits. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one that has become a part is for it to become a part of your identity. Anyone can convince themselves to visit the gym or eat healthy once or twice. But if you don't shift the belief behind the behavior, then it's hard to stick with long-term changes. Improvements are only temporary until they become a part of who you are. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument. The goal is to become a musician. Your behaviors are usually a reflection of your identity. What you do is an indication of the type of person you believe you are, either consciously or unconsciously. So, the tipping point, this idea of shifting from something that you were into something that you now become. What happens is things just become so much easier. The struggle, the question, right? You don't have this back and forth thing going on. You don't. You just do whatever it is that needs to happen in order for you to continue to live the way that you want to live. You know what you need to do and you do it. There's no more debate. There's not any more debate. In other words, you simply become it or you embody whatever it is that you're wanting to change, whatever you're wanting to do. When I practiced these spiritual principles, what happened was I had hit my spiritual tipping point. In other words, I had done it enough to where whatever it took, I don't care if it meant getting up at 5 o'clock, if it meant getting up at 4 o'clock, if it meant getting up at 3 o'clock. I don't care what it meant, I was going to do it. It became non-negotiable for me. Why? Because I see the benefits of it. I see the benefits of doing all these different practices. And by the way, and we're going to talk about this next week, not everybody has the same things that they do regarding your spiritual practice. It's not like, here's a pretty box, do everything in the pretty box. It just depends on you. And we'll talk about that, right? But here's my question for you this morning. Where are you? I'm just curious. Are you in? Did you dive in yet? Are you still on the outside looking in? Or maybe you're somewhere in between. And by the way, when I say this, there's no shame, blame, guilt, or judgment here. Never. We don't do that here. And the reason I'm asking this question is not to make you go there. It's just a question that I have for you. To live a spiritual life is a complete different reality. I'm just going to tell you that. When you live a spiritual life, you are living in a different reality than people that don't live a spiritual life are. You look at things differently. You see things differently. You understand things differently. You act differently. You talk differently. You feel differently. You show up differently. It's just it's a different way of being. And by the way, does that make me better, smarter? No, never. It's got nothing to do with it. Why do I do this? Because I love God. Why do I do this? Because there's something inside of me that says you're way bigger than you've been told. Why do I do this? Because energetically it fills my heart to do it. I don't have something going, well, you have to meditate every 45 minutes every single day. That's not, we shared this. I shared this a couple of weeks ago. That's not where it's at for me. I do this because it allows me to have the biggest experience of God that I have every single day. And I open myself up to that experience. And therefore, I'm going to keep doing that stuff. I don't care. It's not negotiable, right? And so, where are you? In your heart. Where are you? Here's what I know to be true for me. In my belief, it's true for all of us, is that we all have inside of us our own map, our own way back home. How do we get there? And my belief is that it's been imprinted in us and we were given to it before we came down here. And my belief is that we just forgot that. We were told it's not there. We were told we're not who we really are, which is this beautiful light of God, this beautiful expression that's beyond understanding and beyond comprehension, but at the base of it, it's always love. And my belief is that when we start to listen to what's going on inside of us, that we're given the keys, if you will, to that roadmap back. And I'm inviting you back to yourself. And I'm telling you, each and every one of you, and I don't care where you're at in your own journey, in your own path, what I'm telling you is it's there for you. You're not too far gone. You're not lost. You just wanted to wait, possibly, until this moment right here, right now, to wake up. That doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you anything other than a beautiful light of God. But what I'm telling you is there is a whole world there, and your soul is calling you back. It's asking you, hey, I'm here, pay attention. I will show you the way back home. I will show you the way back home for you. Not for Mike, not for anybody else, for you. It's there. And so my invitation to you this morning is to think about what that would look like for you and what little changes might that look like for you. And I would love to hear them. So if you get a minute and you got an idea or two, please come share them with me. It'd be really, really fun. Having said that, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Each and every one of you, you've really, really added to our collective this morning. You are all brilliant, brilliant lights of God. And I know for some of you that's hard to hear, but that's okay. I'm going to keep calling you that. Every single Sunday you come in here, I'm going to call you a beautiful light of God because you are. You're a beautiful expression of God just as you are. You are needed just as you are. We need your expression. We need your voice. We need your presence. Don't ever forget that. We've waited long enough to remember who we are. It's time to actually do it now. And that's my invitation to you. Remember who you are, this brilliant light of God that came down here at this time specifically to share your light and your love. Do that. You're doing a good job. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. From the bottom of my heart, God bless you. Namaste and Namaway. Amen. Thank you.